think that's the challenge, Armin. I started by talking a little bit about, the sorts of books even that people are generally exposed to or even seek out when they want to learn about leadership. So to give you a very simple example, when you go to the airport, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this goes to the airport often. Go to the airport and there you have 2-3 hours to kill on your connection. So you wander into the bookstore and you go to the shelf of the bookstore at the airport. And I'm deliberately talking about the airport bookstore because that is a very
the bestseller list.
They're trying to sell books. I mean, just like they're trying to sell everything in that airport, right? So look at those books. You'll see the biographies in particular. They are quite successful. And as soon as you start reading, also the autobiographies, which are a particular kind of genre, right? People telling their success stories. When you start reading them, you read about, here's what they did when they were in school, and here's what they did when they built their first business, and here's what they did when they got elected mayor, and it's always about the individual action. And I'm left often wondering, well, okay, who else is responsible? Who helped this person, right? And I'm not just talking about, the father or the mother. I'm talking about people that we never heard of or that aren't even mentioned in the book. I mean, we're not islands. We're human beings. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. We engage with other people. We engage with the world around us. It's just who we are as a species. And I found that that literature, which is very common, is not strong on this at all, and leaves us wondering. So that's partly what I try to do, is to not to forget the individual, but to highlight the interaction between the individual and the circumstances, not just the circumstances, not just the individual, but that relationship. Okay. So I think that's the fundamental thing. And in terms of what we learn from this, if patterns is one way of looking at it. We historians don't believe that history, people like to say history repeats itself. Actually, history does not repeat itself.
But it rhymes, no?
History can, well, yes, there is that thing that history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Maybe. I think that what really matters is that history does give us insight into something very important. It gives us insight into us, because humans are the ones who are doing things in the past, and we are humans. There are things that are eternal. For example, competition for material resources, struggle for power, economic cooperation, ideas that people have about the world and about the meaning of life, culture, art, music, writing. These are just these things that I mentioned are eternal. They are perennial. They have been part of human existence from the beginning of recorded time until today. So when we look at what human beings did in the past, we're not just learning about the past, we're learning about ourselves as human beings. How do we respond to different crises? How did we, not them, we, because there's a continuity. How did we deal with challenges? When did we fight wars? When did we make peace? When did we emphasize this kind of political ideology? When did we emphasize that kind of political ideology? Just as examples. So when you read about the past, and that's something that I think I gained insight into just by teaching students who were engaged with the present and the future.
Sure.
Right? That's where you see the connection. It's not that it's straightforward that I would say, well, here's how people dealt with the economic crisis of 1873. So that means that's how we should deal with the economic crisis of 2023. No, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that, because the situation in 1873 is different from the situation in 2023. But what you do see is how we respond to different kinds of crises. What worked or didn't work? What kind of leaders emerged in particular moments? What kind of leaders disappeared in particular moments? And I think that those things, they don't repeat themselves exactly, but you see that our ancestors, as it were, are not too different from us, and we're not too different from them.